Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the latest in our series of Roadmap for Progress town halls. My name is David Donofrio. I am the chairman of Roadmap for Progress, and tonight I am joined by Zoe Midyett. She is running for U.S. Congress in Oklahoma. Welcome, Zoe.
Thank you for having me, and I really appreciate your endorsement. It meant a lot to me.
Absolutely. We're so glad you're here. Just real quick, a couple little housekeeping items. Tonight's town hall is going to be about 30 minutes long. We want to give Zoe an opportunity to introduce herself to everyone and talk about the important issues in her race. I did want to mention that pinned to this video is a donation link that you can contribute to Zoe's campaign. Anything you can chip in is appreciated. And then we're also looking forward to a day of action this weekend where you can assist her campaign from anywhere in the country and get involved. So we hope that you will do that. I certainly will be. Um, so let's go ahead and get started. So Zoe, if you want to let us know a little bit about yourself and why you decided to run for Congress this year.
Well, I'm originally from Arizona, and I was born and raised there, and I was working at America Online. I'm kind of a tech nerd. I had my first computer in '78, which rather dates me. We used to program on cassette tape and punch cards. But
Cool.
working for America Online, they finally had the opportunity to move to another state, and it was Oklahoma. And Oklahoma really appealed to me. I've always been an ag girl, 4-H, FFA, Pony Club, English writing and ag. I'm kind of a weird amalgamation. And I really wanted a place where the grass was green and the horses could graze. And I had like this wonderful vision and a nice place to raise my family. So when the opportunity, I kind of pushed for it, came to move to Oklahoma, I came here on the startup crew with AOL. Coincidentally, in a very bad way, in a good way, we arrived in Oklahoma right after the bombing. And I really never regretted my choice to move to Oklahoma and make it my home at that point. I saw the best and the saddest parts of Oklahoma, but the way that the people here really got behind each other and really supported each other and took care of each other made my choice absolutely firm. It was wonderful. So fast forwarding, I was breeding horses and had a ranch and raising the occasional hog and steer for the family and doing the egg thing. And the owner of my feed store said, "Hey, Zoe, you want to buy a feed store?" And I said, "Well, that sounds like a great idea," not knowing anything about small business, not knowing that when you own a small business, you wear every single hat, your HR, your insurance, you're hiring and firing, you're the grievance department, you're the front counter, you are everything. And there is no other department. It just all falls on you. But all that aside, I love the choice that we made. And that was a year after our son was born. So I had a newborn basically, and I had a brand new feed store, and we were thriving. We were doing okay. And it just instilled in me even more what I loved about Oklahoma. During that period, we had a ton of deadly tornadoes here. I think they made nationwide news. So pretty much everyone is aware of how bad they were. And I noticed at that point that no one was taking care of the animals. So we got together, my staff, well, I tortured my staff into joining me on this project, and we started just going out in the field and talking to people that had injured animals and gathering animals and finding vets for them and finding care. And this turned into an international movement. We had donations from all over the world. We had people coming from New Orleans that had worked on Katrina. We had pallets and pallets and trucks of people coming. I kept saying, "Hey, I'm not a 501c. We're just helping the animals here. Like, we don't care. You guys are doing great." So doing that, I really got to see the Oklahoma community and meet a lot of people. And I also learned a lot about what is called psychological first aid, which ultimately we weren't helping the animals. We were giving relief to the people and a shoulder to cry on. And that is what makes the difference. And I learned a lot about myself and more about Oklahoma at that point. So now we're fast forwarding to ask me why I ran. So my cousin moved out here from California because California was just too much for him. He wasn't a California person. He was more of an Okie. And I used to make fun of him because he sat and watched sports ball all day. Didn't matter what it was, hockey, football, tennis. He'd watch it, wouldn't do anything. And I said, Stephen, I said, go do, don't watch, go do. And I found myself watching Twitter and Facebook and the news and just getting more and more frustrated and furious and not being a part of the solution. And something to me just kind of said, hey, I can do better. I can do better than our current representation. And that's when I filed. It was that much of a, you just got to do something. You can't just sit there and be a watcher anymore. You need to get involved. So that is kind of, it's a long-winded story, but that's kind of me and where this all started. And that was back in February, I recall.
Wow. And the rest is history.
Pretty much.
That's awesome. Good for you. That's great. So, yeah, wanted to dive in a little bit. So, as one of our endorsed candidates, we view you as someone who can help put our country back on the roadmap for progress. And so I wanted to hear from you a little bit about what you think that means, and specifically what that aspiration can help your role achieve in Congress.
So I know a lot of candidates are coming from different places than what I'm experiencing in Oklahoma. Parts of Oklahoma are almost third world in this point in terms of healthcare and education. So the roadmap for progress from my district is starting to get medical places in place and doctors in place so someone is literally not driving 4 hours round trip to see a pediatrician, or 10 hours round trip for kidney dialysis, or 4 hours round trip for a VOTEC education. We are so behind and been so left behind. There's no connectivity in many parts of the state. So when everything shut down due to COVID, the kids were just on summer break. There was no online school. There were no devices. There was no connection. So all these children, all the way through seniors, lost 2 months of their school year and were just kind of left to drift. So the roadmap for progress, as I see it, is we need to bring this entire country, not just Oklahoma. There's more rural areas than there are city areas, a lot more of them. And the rural areas, I think a lot of people experienced when they went to the grocery store during COVID and didn't see them packed, the cases packed. But those rural areas actually do something, even though they're often forgotten about and thought of as flyover places. They're not. These are the people that get up at 4 a.m. and go out and produce. And they're the reason you get to go have 40,000 choices at Whole Foods. And the gentleman I'm running against has kind of forgotten that. It seems, from my perspective, he tends to just go for big international corporate farms, and they're cutting in line of some of the smaller producers. So my roadmap for progress is from the bottom up in rural America. Obviously, there are a million other issues that I agree with, that the forerunners like AOC and other wonderful Congress people are running with, that I'd happily support. But they've got the ball with those, but no one has the ball with just the producers. So that's kind of my roadmap.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So yeah, I wanted to touch base on just a couple of the big national stories that have captured everyone's attention this year. Obviously, the first one on everyone's mind is COVID-19, as you said, and it's interesting. I like what you said about that. What how do the rest of us notice flyover country is not having the food on our shelves, and it's literally true. I wanted to kind of ask you, maybe go off a little bit further about, you mentioned, a lot of the kids did not have those last 2 months of school. What are some ways that, COVID-19 has affected your district in general, and as that leads into a policy perspective, a prescription for your area, what is a policy or some policies that you would recommend, not just to remedy the current situation, but heaven forbid we have another situation, to try to look ahead and learn from this one?
Well, one of the things I talk about is connectivity, and it doesn't have to be really a big deal in hardcore. Oh, I need to interrupt. We have a major thunderstorm coming through, and I am very rural. So if I go poof, that's what's happened.
Okay, thank you.
So our connectivity is marginal. Um, but the kids right now, there is a really great group in Guyman, Oklahoma, which is in the Panhandle, and they're offering for their little window of broadband, they're saying $30, any kid. Sign up, it's $30, we'll get you signed up, we'll get you going. But taking the step back a step, Oklahoma is just a symptom of the greater problem. If you look at DuBois Department of Education, why on earth was there not some plan, or not mandate, that's the wrong word, good idea to consolidate what we were going to do? Why did every single district have to fly by the seat of their pants and start and create this from scratch? It's ludicrous. So starting with that, I look at the Department of Education and see a lot of flaws there. I feel that instead of just throwing monies at the state, because education is a state mandate, how about throwing textbooks and computers and laptops at the states? How about pencils and paper for the teachers so they're not going on to GoFundMe to get art supplies? That's something the federal government could be doing without interfering with the state's role in education state by state. I also had a plan way before COVID. My pipe dream possibly is that teachers get a standard national salary rate like the military. So when you walk out of teaching university, you are paid X. You know exactly what you're going to get paid no matter where you go. Now, well, why would I go teach in Beverly Hills if I'm only making X dollars a day? Well, or a year. In Beverly Hills, you would get a stipend for cost of living. But to take that one step further, there would be incentives for teaching in inner city schools that were kind of difficult, and incentives for teaching in rural areas, bringing teachers in at a bonus rate. These single teachers that don't have family connections right out of college can go to these rural areas or these inner city schools and really make a difference. And that's when they're most passionate too. It's not so much experience, it's passion. It's getting out there and reaching those kids. I don't mean to get off on education, I apologize. The other thing that is a major issue, as I said before, is healthcare. And healthcare is broken in this country in so many ways. And Obamacare should have been the fix, but it was blocked in every way it could be. In Oklahoma, our family to use Obamacare is $2,000 a month for the three of us. That's untenable, that's out of our budget. I can't afford $2,000 a month for a maybe. It's just not practical. So we are using a lesser healthcare and crossing our fingers. But we need to have, at the very minimum, what I'd like to see occur in the next year is that we have a healthcare in place for every American that covers routine care. So your colonoscopy is cared for, your mammogram is taken care of, your vaccines are taken care of, all of that stuff, your physical exams are just free. Pro bono, done. And then let's build off of that. That would solve a lot of cascade failures because people are afraid to go to the doctor because they can't afford it. So that's kind of one of the things I've seen. You asked about COVID going forward. I am terribly concerned that we're only at the beginning of an economic crash. I look at so many people that were laid off, for example, from the restaurant industry that have are renters, not homeowners, have no way to pay their rent, no job that they can get right now, and they're going to lose their homes or their place of living. I mean, home, it doesn't matter if it's a rental or they're going to lose their homes. They're going to be on the street and nothing is being done. No one's addressing this. People throw out, oh, we need renter protection. Oh, and it's randomly from different governors is where I've been hearing it, but I haven't heard it from the House or the Senate across the board that we need to take care of and to put in mortgage protections and renter protections while this is going on. Sorry, deep breath. But I think that answers your question. I tend to get long-winded because I'm very passionate. I apologize.
No, not at all. That was wonderful. And I mean that's the thing is that with something that complicated, it's affecting every facet of society. And so we can't just answer it, in a short. And so I'm glad that yours was so well thought out. Another issue that has been just capturing the national attention right now is the Black Lives Matter movement. And this affects every different community in different ways, and I understand. I am curious to know in your own district, what has been kind of the reaction and how has it affected your area. Um, but for you as a member of Congress, obviously you're voting on policies for the entire country too. So what's what are some of the things that we can do so that this is not just a bumper sticker or a slogan, that we can actually achieve some meaningful, lasting change, that we can meet this moment with something tangible in policy?
Okay, you're ready for another long-winded one. I've got it. Sorry.
Please.
Um, I think defund the police is a ludicrous statement. That is a knee-jerk reaction, and I don't see how that solves anything. What I believe it was Camden, New Jersey. Please do not quote me. Long before Black Lives Matter really came to the forefront, like it should have a long time ago. I believe that was the city that kind of fired their entire police department and then carefully rehired everyone. And I believe they left 20% of their force not rehired. And to the best of my knowledge, they have not had one racially motivated inappropriate issue between the police and their people they're protecting since then.
Wow.
And the one thing I'd like to see is two things. Instead of defund the police, let's fund the police. I feel terrified for police officers that have to do an 8-hour shift by themselves in a patrol car. They're called upon to pull over people and walk up to this person completely not knowing. Black, white, purple, doesn't matter. But they always have to be afraid a little bit for their lives until they get up there and figure out what's going on. So let's put 2 people in the patrol cars. Let's fund that. But instead of 2 officers that are the status quo that we've always known, I think we have a traditional officer that is Rambo. And then we have a social services officer, one that is trained in mental health, dealing with domestic violence, possibly bilingual if they're working in a bilingual community. And ideally, both of these officers at the bare minimum should be opposite sex, if not opposite race. So it's really creating this cohesion. And it's also, if an officer, we've all been, it's almost like some of these officers fall into the mob mentality. One guy starts doing this, another guy starts doing this. Well, those are the buddies I drink with on the weekend. I guess I'm supposed to just let it go. I'm not saying that what they're doing is right, but I think if you have Jiminy Cricket on your shoulder instead, I think you also prevent these issues from happening. And you also, for the officer that might be marginal, and because racism is not born, it's taught. So for the individual that has never been exposed to a different culture, whether it be African American, Hispanic, American Indian, or whatever, maybe having someone that they're working with 8 hours a day that's of a different race, culture, will give them new insight that those people are just like them. They want to go home at the end of the day and have a comfy chair and eat a good steak dinner and watch a really good thing and get a hug from their spouse and raise their kids. They don't want anything different. And I think everyone has kind of blinders on and they're just looking at the protest. Well, the protests are the bursting of the dam. And it's about dang time. I'm very saddened by the violence that has been on the protesters, the outside violence. I think that's uncalled for, and it breaks my heart. I think instead of sending in shock troops, I think you limit when protests should occur. You make them in the daytime. You give them an outlet for their protests. You make them more organized. You make them more healthy, and you give them a voice. And I think everyone would be a little bit surprised how little looting, which really doesn't happen that much anyway, and how much violence would be prevented for that. But that's kind of my stance on that. But Black Lives Matter, one more thing, is been a long time coming. And it's not just Black Lives Matter, it's American Indian Lives Matter and Hispanic Lives Matter. It's minority lives matter. They are not lesser just because they were born a different color. It's silly. It's ludicrous. And we need to get over it. And we should be over it. Martin Luther King was supposed to make us get over it. So.
Amen. What I appreciate especially about your answer is just the fact that you're not seeing it as the one side or the other side, but being, I think the more of the road that says, look, we're not going to, completely get rid of law enforcement. That's crazy. But we're not going to completely, seed to the other side as well. Like we need to, let's build from the structures that we have, but let's build something that is more sustainable and is taking into account everything that we're hearing and we're learning and allowing us to evolve a little bit. So I think that that's really important. Um, so wanted to just touch base for anybody who is just joining us right now, that you can contribute to Zoe's campaign. There is a link attached to this video with the contribution on there. There's also information about Robot for Progress. And in addition, you can RSVP on Facebook to the Day of Action coming this weekend, and you can help this campaign from anywhere in the country. So I wanted to touch on now, a little bit leadership in general. And so, we're coming close to an election right now, but I think there are still a lot of people out there who are disillusioned, who, these are the ones who sometimes they're entertaining going third party, or they're entertaining not voting at all because they don't kind of see a difference between the two sides. And a lot of that, in my mind, goes to the top. We don't see leadership being displayed at the top. We don't see public trust. And that leads to these symptoms of people getting disillusioned and not even wanting to participate. So, what would you say are some of the characteristics that people should be looking for in a leader, and how can we restore that public trust?
Well, I keep reiterating throughout this entire campaign that I think a lot of the representatives forget what the word representative means. They are elected to represent, and they're supposed to be representing the people that, whether they elected them or not, the people that are in their district. Everyone that I speak to, when I'm elected, I vow to represent the diehard Republican to the far left leaning libertarian, independent, whatever title they want to give themselves, because they're all Oklahomans and they're all part of District 3. And I think, and this is Democrat and Republican right now, I find it rather obscene, the he said, she said, the pointing fingers, the not working together, the bad mouthing. And I refuse to badmouth at this point. I always say, someone asked me, how do you make friends with, say, for example, Ted Cruz? And I said, well, we have something in common. And they go, what do you have in common? I said, I don't know yet. I said, we both have families. We have something in common. I've got to find what we have in common. You start there. You learn about the people, you bridge the gap. So in your leadership, what I'm looking for in my leadership, who I'm voting for, is integrity and honesty, not just high-minded policy plans, because high-minded policy plans, while sound good on the air, are not necessarily practical. I like to hear more about stepping stones of how they want to get to that wonderful policy plan. What are the baby steps there? And why should I vote for them? I say, when people ask why they should vote for me, it's because I actually care about Oklahoma and I care about each and every person. And I will be transparent and listen. No canned responses from me. And obviously I can't speak to all the constituents, but I will make sure that I have a staff in place that actually reads the letter and writes a response and takes a tally of these letters and presents them to me. So I'm not left in the dark of what's going on in the district. It takes a team, a good team, to make any job work. It doesn't matter what the job is. At my feed store, I can't load feed and do a feeding plan and fit boots. Doesn't work. So I need a good team there. It's the same thing for a representative, but you need to be honest and transparent. So that's who I look for when I'm voting. I don't really look at party. I grew up with John McCain being part of my life in Arizona. I knew him personally, he and Rose Mofford, when I was the state president of the Children of the American Revolution, and went to DC and got to meet them and spend time with them. And I had great respect for that man. So it doesn't really matter what party you are, it's who you are. And there's differences in the base of the party, but I don't think they're that different.
I love that. Thank you so much.
You're
And
welcome.
it's don't we all wish? I mean, that's in my mind what we're aspiring to is a place where we can just come from a place of actually being people, and not
Exactly.
being these parties and these factions. I mean, our founders, I think, kind of warned us about these factions, and that this is why we're voting for a person and not voting for a party. It's what was supposed to make our country different, but um,
We're a little broken right now.
we are, we are, but we have an opportunity in just over 50 days. We're gonna fix this. I really believe that we are. I think a lot of people are tuned in. Um, the other thing, so I wanted to kind of bring it full circle a little bit. And as we do so, again, just keeping in mind kind of that you've got people in a national audience that are, kind of tuning in from all over the place here. You may have somebody from a super blue district that, maybe they don't need to get involved in races in their area, um, but they're watching your race and they have an opportunity to get involved. And so, um, as you think about giving like a closing argument, also, if you could talk a little bit about why your race in particular is important, why people should be paying attention to the Oklahoma Third, and what it would mean for them to choose to get involved in your race.
Well, if you like a good steak, it's pretty important to be involved in Oklahoma Third. We make a lot of them here. One thing I didn't mention, I am very avid. One of the things I'd like to do, they always say, what would you like to do in your first 100 days? That's a very short amount of time, but if I could do anything, it would be food origin labeling, meaning that your steak came from the US rather than a Brazilian mega company. So that is one thing I want to do that I think would affect everyone. It would give you more of a choice in the grocery store, knowing where your food came from and who produced that food. Taking it one step further, I'd like the same thing with aspirin. I don't want to know that Bayer made the aspirin. I want to know where Bayer made the aspirin. Those are two things that have frustrated me as a mom. I don't like buying drugs for my little baby when he was a baby. He's not a baby anymore. And not knowing who made it. Was it made in China where they had that big formula debacle? Or was it made in Ecuador? I really want to have choices. So that is one reason you can get behind me in District 3, because we fill those meat cases. We fill the loaves of bread. We are the core ingredients. And we also do a lot of oil here, so we also help you drive your car. There's also a lot of alternative energy here. The windmills are taking off like a storm, so we are going green in the state right next to the oil storage tanks. It's pretty amazing to see. So we're not just a flyover district. It's a pretty beautiful, diverse, amazing place. And again, it's where your state comes from.
Fantastic. See, and I want to know that now. I'm going to be looking as my steak from Oklahoma because I want to support
Exactly.
you. So thank you so much, everyone. This is Zoe Midyett. She's running for U.S. Congress in Oklahoma District 3, and we're so glad that you could join us in Roadmap for Progress tonight. Um, so just one last time, if you want to support Zoe, you can do so by clicking on the link that is attached to this video. It's got a donation link. There's also the day of action that's going to be coming up this coming weekend that you could get involved from anywhere. But I know that you are watching this video. Anyone watching this video is going to see why we endorsed Zoe, why we believe that you are a rising star in the progressive movement. And so we're really glad that you're part of this today.
Thank you for having me. And I want to put in a plug. I'm sure there's a donation link for Roadmap for Progress too. So whether or not you like me, if you go visit, at least give them a couple bucks. They're a great group.
Thank you so much. A
You're
couple
welcome.
bucks for each of us. All right. Well, thank you so much. And to everyone as well, make sure that you tune in next week. We are going to have another in our series of town hall discussions here. And make sure to support all of our candidates at roadmapforprogress.com. Have a great rest of your evening.